We'll be getting started here shortly. We'll give it to noon and have some people join us for lunch. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's Partner Spotlight. We'll probably have some more folks join us today, but I wanted to welcome you all today and in our conversation, introduce you all to what we're doing with the WIOA, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act state plan. I wanted to tell you all what our strategy is for the state as we embark on writing the state plan for the next 4 years, and wanted to take in some of your feedback because we wanted to make today's conversation interactive for those that are being engaging with us today and get some thoughts on your idea of the current workforce system and talk about the future of workforce system in the Commonwealth. I wanted to welcome our chairman, Kim Menke. Thank you for joining us. We're glad that we're participating. Kim and I had a really good trip to the National Governors Association summer meeting where a lot of the states across the nation, we're talking about state plans. And so we're taking some of that information and we'll be applying here in the Commonwealth. And again, to former Governor Patton, thank you for joining us. We're glad that you're here. Workforce development continues to evolve, and we're glad that you're participating. So I'll get started. First, we'll share some information for you all to know about what the WIOA state plan is, some of the common themes that you'll be seeing in the Kentucky's plan, and then ask for your feedback. And I'll also share our strategy of gathering information as we make our way across the Commonwealth. So let me share my screen, if that is okay. And if anyone has any questions and you want to make a comment, please don't hesitate to unmute, interrupt me, or write something in chat. We have Alicia Taylor here who can jot down some of the thoughts you guys are saying. So let me get started with our presentation here on the WIOA state plan, and I'll do it from the beginning. So what WIOA state plan is, it is a requirement by every state in the nation to write their next 4 years, the strategy to approach workforce development, the strategy, the vision, and then how to operationalize and make sure that vision is reached. And so we are in the midst of gathering information. Our plan to get all the information from on the ground is by visiting local areas. So we have already went to 3 out of the 10 local workforce areas, and we'll be visiting the 7 others to gather information. So we wanted to utilize this partner spotlight to make you all aware of the WIOA state plan and what it's all about and how you can be engaged. And at the same time, at the end, gather your feedback on the current and future of workforce development in the Commonwealth. So the quick introduction, like I just did, get into what the state plan is, the stakeholders involved, the goals we're looking for, and the strategic themes that you'll be seeing in the state plan based on the strategic goals set off by the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board, the KWIB, for approaching workforce development. So, as mentioned, the WIOA state plan, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, is designed to be completed every 4 years and designed to find innovative ways and successful ways to engage two primary customers of the workforce development system: the individual consumer, the job seekers, and also the employers, the businesses that are hiring those job seekers. Those are the two main customers of the workforce system, both needing equal services and support as we look at a better economy and a booming economy at that. Our governor is proud to say that all the investments that have been made in the Commonwealth, we are record numbers and also record number of opportunities for individuals to enter jobs that are going to be coming to the Commonwealth. So how do we work with those individuals to prepare them for opportunities, new and existing ones? And how do we make sure businesses are able to hire and retain those skilled workers? Those are the two primary customers that we're envisioning as the consumers of the workforce system. So our state workforce plan has to accommodate approaches to both of those entities. As mentioned too, the exercise is conducted every 4 years. Every state is doing it. And the idea is that the state workforce board and partners provide the strategy, with the state workforce board leading that strategy. We are a business-led entity with government, education, nonprofit, labor, all on the board. And that strategic theme is able to be defined on a state workforce board and then operationalized in the workforce system, either through the education and labor cabinet or through many of the partners that all touch workforce development, because we know workforce development is spread across various agencies in state government and even nonprofits. So that is the exercise, and we want to ensure that coming out of the pandemic world, that we are looking at the next 4 years in a very innovative way. That is why it's the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. So grab onto that being innovative in this approach. The stakeholders that are, the voices that need to be heard, the voices that need to be in the state plan are various. So as mentioned, businesses are critical, individual customers are critical. But in addition to that, who all else sit around the table for workforce development, right? We have educators and education systems across all learning, either from preschool to post-secondary to even non-traditional routes, to on-the-job routes, to proprietary schools. All various types of educational institutions need to have a voice, because those are various ways talent is being trained right now. We need to have community-based organizations at the table, because they are the ones that are serving some of those untapped talent pools. Individuals that have had barriers or sidelines, they're the organizations that serve those individual groups that can have access to employment opportunities. And they're also the organizations that provide some of the supportive services that many of our employees need to maintain employment. So their perspective is critical. We need workforce development boards, both on the local and state level. Local workforce development boards understand their local economies better than anyone else. So their perspective is critical to it. And then the labor organizations, they are defined in WIOA. They serve individuals, and they're the voice for the workers. So all these components, all these actors are around the table and needing to contribute to the development and understanding of where the workforce development system is now and where can it go. So wanted to have a graphic to showcase these are the voices that we're gathering as we're developing and creating the documents that we'll be sharing with the State Workforce Board for the ultimate understanding and strategizing for the next 4 years. We want to, understand those perspectives from various ways of looking at it. What are the goals, best practices, challenges, and opportunities? What are some of the best practices that are seen in workforce development right now? What's really working? What's really something that we can, make available across the Commonwealth that's only maybe working in one area, that's scalable? What's working that's is potentially we can take it to the next level, to take it from level one to level two as far as opportunities for people to really develop their skills and gain employment. And at the same time, what are the challenges and opportunities associated in workforce development? We know that many of the challenges that we've thus far heard have some connections to individuals having the right soft skills and the foundational workplace skills. That is a challenge, but it is also an opportunity. What kind of opportunities are there available for our youth, specifically when we talk about lack of soft skills? What are some of the opportunities that they can embark on to learn those soft skills, maybe in the workplace through some kind of a job experience, a job shadow, or maybe a first job opportunity to maybe work in some kind of entry level position, gain those skills, and take those skills to the next level as they progress in their careers. So those are some of the examples that we're looking to hear as we are going across the Commonwealth and sitting down with various partners to discuss what impacts them, what their current state is, and what they see as the future state. And we want to look at it, how can we redesign the system to work better, streamline better to serve that individual customer and the businesses at large, because we always have to look at those two as our ultimate consumers. In doing that, some of the things that the State Workforce Board has laid out several years ago, but continue to be very relevant, are the strategic themes gathered from the strategic plan that the board created. So number one, employer engagement. I mentioned it earlier, being an employer-driven workforce system, we need employers at the table and sharing to make sure that the system stays as agile to the changes that are happening. So employer engagement and active participation is critical. Education, training, and work-based learning. Education attainment as a whole is necessary. The learning may look different. It may not be in a classroom. It may not be for a specific amount of time, but people must continue to learn. So how does that look like? How does one continue to gain their education? Workforce participation. That is a big one for the Commonwealth. We rank towards the bottom of the list for labor force numbers, but then we have certain parts of the Commonwealth that are high in labor force participation, while other parts of the Commonwealth that are drastically low. And so what are different workforce participation avenues that we can engage underrepresented communities, and then in other places we can encourage more work by making sure that the jobs available are ones that are they can grow in good quality jobs. And then finally, the resource alignment part. We want to make sure that all the investment being done across state government in workforce development and even partners, that programs are aligned, ideas are aligned, and strategy is aligned. Because the only way we can gain the best return on investment is by working together and making sure that partners can leverage each other's strengths to, realize better opportunities for people and the businesses, because otherwise there are some duplicative workforce programs, there's some overstepping on each other. So the big strategic theme is going to be, how do we align some of those programs? So these four are the common themes that are going to be across the state plan. They're going to be strung throughout the plan and woven throughout the plan, because they are the strategic goals of the State Workforce Board. These are the things that we can strive for and continue growing towards, because they're the ones that are going to make us successful. So that's just so you all understand the strategic themes in the state plan. Another thing I wanted to share with you all are some of the Department of Labor themes that they've told all the state workforce boards across the nation on what they want to see in their 4-year WIOA state plan. One of the biggest things coming out of Congress in the past couple of years are the three major infrastructure acts that have been passed. The first one is the bipartisan infrastructure law. Next one is the Inflation Reduction Act. And the third one is the CHIPS and Science Act. All these three major packages have billions of dollars in them for building out the nation's infrastructure. But a big component of all those three laws is workforce development. One thing Congress did not legislate was a mandate that anyone receiving dollars, whether it's a state agency or a private company or anyone, any recipients, there's no mandate to work with the workforce system. But there is a workforce component. So having the workforce system, aka the workforce board, either on the state level, on the local level, participate in these conversations and this strategic thinking of how to best utilize these dollars, that's going to be critical because this will help train our next set of workers. I heard a statistics being noted that these three federal legislations have more dollars in them than Eisenhower had when he built the highway system in the United States. So how can we leverage those funding to help with workforce development? Another theme that DOL wants to make clear is equity. We know that some workforce programs and some occupations and some just general labor force participation isn't equitably divided up. How do we make sure more women enter the workforce and are able to stay there? How do we make sure that more Black and brown Americans are in the workforce system attaining the same outcomes as other groups? How do we make sure that all the individuals that have been underrepresented sidelines have equal opportunity and equity as they reach for their next goals? So that's going to be a theme that the DOL wants to ensure is included. The next one is job quality. We know job quality is a key thing for both for business and for workers. When a company has good quality jobs, they have a competitive advantage to hiring and retaining their talent. It's a shout out to Kim Menke for being on here, but when you're in central Kentucky, everyone knows going to work at Toyota is a good job. Working at Toyota has always been traditionally noted as the premier place to go. And we have Toyotas and other companies across the Commonwealth that have that same distinction of being the premier employer. Why do people want to go there? It's obviously there's good pay and good benefits, but then there's also career advancement, representation, being able to have safe working environment, being able to get education while you're working. Those key things that companies can really look internally and see what they can make sure that they're become more attractive to the talent pools. They can really make improvements on that and really offer job quality opportunities. And for the worker, I think it's a no-brainer that we all want to be in a good job. And when we have a job that supports us, that we know understands what we want to, have with our lives, that hears our comments, that responds to our requests, we want to stay with those companies. And so job quality is a big component to what the DOL is saying. And then finally, sector-specific strategies. We know that Kentucky, we are a manufacturing state. We're a maker state. 1 in 8 Kentuckians are in manufacturing. What are we doing sector specific to make sure people are entering and growing in that sector? We know EV is we're the EV battery capital of the nation. How are we going to approach all the EV plants and then the suppliers associated with it to make sure that the training is aligned? Care economy that is incorporates healthcare, elder care, child care, all the high touch occupations and industries that revolve around taking care of people. As people are aging, that's going to be more and more critical. There's other sectors that are critical to Kentucky: construction, logistics, business and IT, and I mentioned healthcare and advanced manufacturing. Those make up our 5 key sectors. But what are our sector-specific strategies to for the next 4 years to develop both the people and the businesses in those industries. So those are the DOL themes, a little insight from them. They haven't fully put out this. This is something we've gathered in our conversations, in our visits, but this is what they want to see from all states across the nation as we write our state plan. So what I wanted to do with that, wanted to kind of gauge your all's thinking on it. What we've been doing in person when we visit our local areas, we've been offering some focus groups. We've been dividing up into categories such as elected officials, businesses, community organizations, and individual consumers. And we were able to have a conversation with each of those specific focus group on the current workforce system and where they see as the future of workforce system. And what we're gathering are common themes and also unique attributions to those local areas. What I wanted to do here during the partner spotlight, I definitely wanted to introduce you all to the state plan, but then move into a more of a conversation to hear from you on what you think is the current workforce system, how does that look, and the future workforce system, what you want to see, how you want to see those two consumers of workforce system be better served. So we wanted to move into that kind of dialogue. We're going to run a jam board. So it's going to be an electronic whiteboard that will take some notes. But before we get into that, I did want to ask anyone on the line if you have any questions, anything to add. Our chairman has heard me make this pitch many times. He's joined us in our conversation. So if anyone wants to add anything before we move into the exercise of hearing from you, please let me know.
I wanted to add one thing. I didn't expect to say anything, so but I think in looking at the state plan and kind of the slides that you presented, I was thinking through some of the notes that came to mind, and what really jumped out to me was thinking about the barriers and the challenges to people, coming back into the workforce. What are those? And some of those include housing. And so a recent study from the Bowen Research talked about in Kentucky, many businesses are talking about this shortage of housing supply is impacting their ability to hire and retain workers. And so when I look at the partners at the table and the stakeholders, I hope to see a definitive placement for housing technicians and housing providers and housing agencies, because I think that is a crucial component. When we look at, the governor has talked about, announcements of many jobs, including the EV plant that will bring 10,000 jobs, but that also includes 22,000 people coming in a community. And so we know from author Greg Colburn that homes are where jobs go to sleep at night, right? And so when you talk about job growth and population growth, we also have to look at what does that look like in our communities from a standpoint of where are people going to go sleep at night. More so, how does that impact housing instability, those that don't have jobs, persons experiencing homelessness, people that are vulnerable and socially disadvantaged will be pushed out. And so although we have this tremendous job growth, we will continue to see a mismatch in our economy when there is not essential and attainable housing. So I think that housing plays a crucial role when we talk about the barriers to getting people back to work and entering the workforce. When we look at the partnerships, another thing that stands out to me in the presentation is being intentional about the equity lens. And so when we focus on BIPOC, Black and Brown communities, who are those partners? Because let's be honest, Kentucky has about 7 counties that are diverse, but much of our state is rural population. And although rural communities are coming more diverse, we have to be intentional about identifying partners that do represent BIPOC communities. And so who are those partners and what do they have to say? and what are those barriers to our BIPOC communities? What are those barriers to maybe weedies? What does that look like? There's also a lot to say as far as looking at second chance and fair chance employers and their involvement with families that are equal justice involved. And so that is another crucial component that is unique and specific to our state of Kentucky. We have people that are ready to work, but understanding why people get jobs. It's not just to train and have soft skills and earn a wage. For BIPOC communities, working is about creating generational wealth and being able to have housing, being able to own something. And so we have to be able to understand why people need to generate income and upward mobility before we can begin to have a discussion about it. So I say all this to say that I'd like to see, as far as partnerships and as far as the plan, that there is a placeholder for housing because we need businesses, those stakeholders, those voices to include economic plan in their job growth when they look at that. Where are people going to sleep? And then I'd also like to understand, as far as an equity lens, what is the intention around that? Who are the partnerships for Black and Brown communities? And that they are truly representative of the communities that we serve and who we, what we hope to believe and look like for the state of Kentucky. So I hope that makes sense. If there's any questions about my comments, I'm open to those too. But
No, I'm glad you said that, Kay, and I understand that you're coming from the Kentucky Housing Corporation that is critical to the your all's mission and our growth, down I-65, right? It is tremendous and how and in the urban communities. And so we are definitely jotting that down. I
okay.
will also share with you some of our upcoming local visits. And then the Kentucky Housing Corporation is also part of the Educational Workforce Collaborative. And in October, we are going to be having a state plan conversation at the Workforce Collaborative. So I'll please join us in that, because that perspective, I think, if it's not voiced many times over, it needs to be mentioned across all of our conversations. So thank you for sharing, and continue sharing as we make our way around. Anyone else? Any thoughts?
Alashir, this is, and others, good afternoon. This is Johnny Collette from University of Kentucky Human Development Institute. Alashir, it won't surprise you and Kim and others on the call today that, a particular focus on people with disabilities in our state and their engagement in the workforce is a critical part of the work that we do, and we're glad to represent as a member of the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board. But real quick, just so everybody on the call will know, we have a 42% gap in employment rate between people with and without disabilities in Kentucky. So that ranks us 48th in the nation, and it ranks us behind all 7 of our neighboring states. So it's a challenge, but it's also a unique opportunity. And there's a lot. So we've got a challenge we can talk about, but I also think, at the federal level, at the national level, there are also a lot of things Kentucky's doing that I would argue not too many states are. We're getting ready to have an inclusive workforce summit on September 13th that, by the way, is sold out. That's a partnership between the cabinet, KWIB, Kentucky Chamber, and lots of other people, where that summit focuses on the engagement of people with disabilities as part of the talent pool in our state's workforce. So, Alashir, for those reasons, the challenges that exist and the work we need to do, but also because of the good work we are doing together and can demonstrate on a national level and to federal partners. I would love to see this show up in our plan, sort of not just in the core program section, right, where vocational rehabilitation has to be. It's a core program, obviously, in WIOA, so it's going to show up. But I would love to see this conversation about people with disabilities just sort of naturally be woven into the broader workforce conversations and the broader plan, because I argue that it's not primarily a people with disability issue, it's primarily a workforce issue. And that's the on-ramp of conversation for us. So anyway, thanks for letting me share a little bit about that as far as, certainly a challenge we face, but also a unique opportunity to lead the nation in some ways, in my view.
Thank you, Johnny. I will, uh, give you guys props for selling out the Inclusive Workplace Summit next week. Lori Ulrich, our vice chair, will be attending as a KWEB representative for it, and we're look forward to kind of her feedback. And also want you to know that we are currently at Eastern Kentucky University for the Bluegrass Workforce Board's annual training, and we showed a pipeline graphic that said we have over 1 million people that have disabilities in Kentucky, and someone was like, that doesn't sound right, that's too many. And Deputy Secretary was, well, said this actually it is true. So many, such a big spectrum, and it is such a population pool that we need to be thinking about. So thank you for your comments, and we appreciate that. Anyone else?
Bashir, this is Kim Minke with Toyota. The Johnny and Kay, thank you both for those comments, because I think it's really, really important for us to realize that we need to engage every able-bodied person, regardless of where they are, in a job and or training opportunity. When you just look at the statistics, we need more people than we have right now working to be able to fill the needs that we have with all the explosive growth that's going on and all the existing companies like Toyota and others that have been here for years and years and years that continue to grow. And so being able to focus on those barriers to employment, certainly housing is one of those, being able to have accommodations is another, but also the transportation areas, because not necessarily all of the jobs are where people live. And so we've got to do some re-evaluation there and come up with ways to accommodate, at least in the short term, if not long term, uh, transportation barriers. Folks that don't have transportation, that maybe are in our larger communities, that need to go to different places. The other significant thing that, again, this plan will address is childcare. Making sure that we can get folks into the workforce that are responsible for their families, whether it be childcare or even in the case of elder care. Uh, there's a lot of companies out there now that recognize that as a significant barrier. And so we'll be taking all those kinds of things into account as well to make sure that we can get as many people into career pathways as possible here in the state of Kentucky.
Thank you, Chairman. I think that those are good points, because workforce development has really, the box has stretched to make sure that to accommodate the folks, we have to meet these other social needs that are out there. So how are we making sure the right partners, as Kay said, are at the table to help us solve that on the state and the local level?
Yeah. Hey, one other quick point, Alashir, and I'm sorry, I meant to make it when I had the floor. But the other thing is, for those folks that are on assistance, we've been working on these calculators and things like that allow us to fully understand what the off ramps could be rather than benefit cliffs. And so being able to develop that strategy with the administration, with the legislature, and partnering with our federal partners to give us as much flexibility as possible to be able to make that transition from assistance into employment or better employment than where they are today. And so, making that a transition rather than a fiscal cliff or a benefit cliff.
And if I can give one example to that, Kim, so
Sure.
the benefit cliffs that we see that are impacted in this order, the first, when people are on public assistance and then they get wages that start increasing, the first thing they lose is Medicaid. Then it goes into SNAP, aka food stamps. Then it's the WIC, the Women Children Program, and the Children Medicaid. And then finally, it's the CCAP, the Child Care Assistance Program. So when we look at two working parents, both making $15 an hour, that have two kids, their wages amount to be annually about $62,000. So under those wages, they are able to receive child care assistance. They have 6% of their annual income goes to child care. If one of the adults makes $18 an hour, so they got a raise, they got a promotion. So now we have one adult making $18 an hour, the other one's still making $15 an hour. Their wages increase over $67,000. They lose their child care assistance. And as a net from 6% that goes to their child care, now they're spending 22% of their income on child care. And there's that cliff that Kim was talking about. That simple $3 an hour raise is causing burdensome to that family that really wants to continue working and continue keeping their kids in childcare. What the opportunity there is, currently the cliff is tied to 85% of the state median income. An off-ramp could be tied to 100% of the state median income and allow people to slowly kind of decrease their subsidies while at the same time maintaining that child care. And so those are kind of the cliffs that are seen across all those benefits, because it really is discouraging. If only 6% of your income is going to childcare, and now $3 an hour is going to make me almost a quarter of my income go to childcare, that is not a statistic, or economically it doesn't make sense. And so that is why those understanding those cliffs are important. And thank you for bringing that up to Kim. Anyone else want to comment on the current system and maybe as you see the future system? Alicia is in the background putting some things down on our Jamboard, our electronic whiteboard. Anything else that you all consider worthwhile? I know this is kind of impromptu. You probably didn't expect to speak today, but we wanted to introduce this to you all and take the opportunity to hear from our attendees. Well, so this isn't the end all. This is, if this is your first kind of introduction to the state plan, there's going to be more things associated with the state plan. So let me share my screen real quick, give you some opportunity to continue staying engaged and having conversations with us. So going back to the upcoming sessions. So back to the slideshow here. So if look, so we have some upcoming sessions for our local visits. So on September 28th, we will be in the Bluegrass area. I will not be there. Debbie will be here, and we'll be having a conversation with the local workforce board. They're going to be inviting those stakeholders I mentioned, and I will encourage going forward to case comments as they're inviting the community organizations to make sure housing is part of that community organizations they're inviting, to make sure it's the organizations that serve our brown and black populations in Kentucky. And so we'll be in Bluegrass on September 28th. We'll be in Owensboro on October 5th, Moorhead October 9th, Hazard October 10th, and Lincoln Trail, E-Town, October 17th. So we've already visited Northern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, and South Central Kentucky. We're doing a little bit differently in the Kentucky and the Works area. We're doing it not in one visit, but multiple divisions. So that is not on here, but we welcome you all and sharing this with your partners and stakeholders, because we want to hear from community. people, businesses, everyone, come out and have a conversation. We're looking for commonalities and unique attributes. I'll give you one unique attributes we heard from West Kentucky. So we had a focus group with veterans coming out of Fort Campbell. They told us, and note, here's some statistics: 500 veterans transition from Fort Campbell every month. So one of the things that they told us, the only thing that they know about Kentucky is Hopkinsville. When they picture Kentucky, they picture Hopkinsville. We love Hopkinsville. It's a beautiful town, many good qualities there. But then there's more attributes to Kentucky and more opportunities across all parts of Kentucky that they're not being exposed to. They also mentioned to us a lot of entry-level jobs are presented to them during transition, but some of them are a little more skilled, a little more trained. They want to be able to have jobs that pay wages that can support their families, their young families. When they're not given those opportunities through the employers that are recruiting, they're left to have to reenlist. And that's a good thing for our Army. It's a good thing for our military, but it's an opportunity lost from a business from hiring from a veteran. So those are kind of unique attributes. Some more common attributes are those soft skills that I mentioned earlier. It's trades, it's the housing, childcare, transportation points. So those are some of the commonalities. We will also be talking about the state plan at the Education and Workforce Collaborative on October 12th. It's not listed here. And then should the chairman be open to it, which we are heading in that direction, is we're really the culmination of it all is going to be discussed at the quarterly meeting in November to let the KWIPs do what they do well, is strategize based on the findings. So state plan conversation is going to continue to at least dominate things that come out of my mouth. But I hope you all start to think about ways we can look at these 4 years, because it really is a collaborative effort. So I wanted to leave you guys with this understanding where we'll be, ask for you all to continue contributing to our board members, such as Johnny Collette, continue advocating for individuals with disabilities, because that is a population pool we need to do better, and the opportunity is there. So really, and glad to hear the Inclusive Workplace Summit is going to be a hit next Wednesday, and it's more avenues to engage those individuals and companies that, or organizations that serve those individuals, and companies that could be hiring individuals with disabilities. So with that, if there's not any more comments, anything you'd like to share, I don't want to drag this out. I want to thank you all for visiting today and learning more. But I'll give a quick 30 seconds if someone wants to mention anything. And since we have former Governor Patton, anything from workforce development in your era to where you see it now and where you see it in the future, if we can capture that experience?
Well, we're in an area that needs it probably worse than any place else. And it's a chicken and egg thing with us. You know, you can't attract the industry because you don't have the kind of skilled workforce. You can't get the skilled workforce unless they got an opportunity to get a job. It's very frustrating. I'm pretty active in our workforce investment board there in Hazard. Won't be able to make that meeting. I've got another engagement that day, but it's important that you keep up the good work, and we'll try to support you.
Thank you. We appreciate that, and we're very glad to have an active board, an active chairman that is visiting, understanding the national conversation, the local conversation, the state conversation, because we want this state plan to be ground up and middle out. That's why getting all these voices is important. So I thank everyone that joined us today. We appreciate you all. Reach out if you have any questions, any follow-ups, and we hope to see you in your areas and in Frankfurt in upcoming meetings. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you, Alistair.
Bye.
Bye.